And thank you, Datamatics, for hosting it. And thank you for coming. We're talking about remote proctoring today. And let the panelists introduce themselves. I'm starting here next to me.
I'm Rich London. I'm the Senior UX at Prometric.
I'm Alex Tong from China, from a company called ATA, and we do a lot of remote proctoring in the part of our world.
Sandeep.
And I'm Sandeep Arora. I look after the business of remote proctoring in Datamatics. And happy to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'm mortar. Let me start with an easy question. I hope for you. So when you look at remote proctoring, and I've seen, of course, experienced some of that with some of my kids who were taking a test remotely during the COVID situation at home. So how would you feel like the user experience is of remote proctoring generally? Let me start with you.
I think it's the way that we got to this was quite accelerated, and the processes have been playing catch up. But certainly the actual experience for a candidate is much better than it was. There's always more room for improvement though.
So when you say better, where was the improvement? Where did it come from?
I think it's the check-in process. Certainly, that's what we call it. Onboarding the candidate, ensuring that they have all the information that they require, and they actually getting into the test, and that process, that kind of human contact as well. Trying to mitigate the anxiety that candidates feel, I think, is really quite important because it's a different experience. So.
Alex, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's funny to say that, but in our part of the world, actually candidate experience is not that important because they need it. So if you don't like it, don't take it, right? And who asked you to come? So that's the basic thing. But then, of course, we care about the candidates. So when we all talk about like test sponsors and vendors pushing for remote proctoring, it's simply because they want business to be conducted. But for candidates to say, shall I wait? And I've been like hearing bad things about remote proctoring, like it didn't start up or the connectivity is not good and everything, including the check-in process. I have to make sure that my room is clean and not being suspicious of cheating. So a lot of anxiety, as you mentioned. But then, after a few trial and maybe a pilot day or whatever, they start feeling comfortable. We've been doing it for 2 years, accelerated as we quote. And we've got about 2 to 3 million tests per year going on remote proctoring. So I would say it's not ideal, but it's a good get around, considering the lockdown situation in China. So you don't have a choice. So that's our situation.
Okay, thanks. And Sandeep, what do you think?
Yeah, so my view would be, I think it's really segment dependent. So for kids, I think since they're more digital native kind of candidates, so anxiety levels are there, but it's relatively lesser. But let's say if a carpenter wants to get certified and he has to do it remotely, I feel that time the challenges are very different. And therefore, the amount of time that he would need to prepare for the exam is probably equally much for him to prepare how to take it. So I think those kind of challenges and other things is something which becomes difficult. However, having said that, with the additional experiential elements which sort of come with it, you can take it anywhere. You don't have to travel in the traffic, go to a particular place, and you can do it at your own time. You can do it after you finish your day's work, get in the evening or before you, whatever. So it's no longer geography dependent, or it is no longer time dependent. So you are sort of, in a way, become free from the shackles of time and space. But of course, it requires a different way of onboarding for it to be things. And of course, I think what Richard and Alex already mentioned, I think.
There are actually
Checking
people
in,
who
other things.
prefer doing the test through remote proctoring.
Yeah, well, I do have some evidence to support my opinion, because I just conduct a survey from candidate perspective in Asia. Well, that mainly 3 markets: China, Japan, and Korea, and all from candidates. Roughly about 800 replied, and to them they said if I haven't tried it, they would say no, I don't want it. But once they've tried it, they all turned into like, it's not too bad, but it's like very tense in terms of me being responsible to make it work, or else, I have to do it again. In the past, I just have to show up. Your venue is ready. I don't have to worry anything. It's about my performance. So that's the only obstacle in between remote proctoring and the success of it.
So now there's new technologies coming to that situation. For instance, the use of AI in proctoring, and those new technologies, do they make that situation better, or do they create more anxiety, or do they improve or deteriorate the user experience? What would you say?
I think it's not a replace. I wouldn't say that it was a replacement. I would say that it was an enhancement. Certainly for proctors, it allows them to maybe potentially proctor more candidates at the same time. That could be, quite an attractive thing for organisations, and it allows them. The AI can surface information. There's a lot of cognitive load when you are a proctor, looking at lots of candidates' video feeds, etc. And the AI could help with that. Surfacing that kind of information and directing you as a proctor to a candidate you might need to, look closely at. So I think it's definitely an interesting avenue to explore.
Does a candidate know if AI is being used, by the way?
I wouldn't say that. I don't know. That's an interesting question. I wouldn't say that they would need. Do they need to necessarily know? It's something that is.
What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think it's more the aiding the proctor.
Yeah.
It's helping them out. The candidate is concerned about the test and their environment and that. So I think it's certainly interesting.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. The way that is being set up, they already know that there's a camera or more than one cameras to actually inspect them. So the way you watch the video or analyze the video with algorithm is almost the same. It doesn't make a difference. But then, as you mentioned, besides the actual efficiency that you're providing to improve, like the proctor ratio, number one. Number two is when there is any suspicious behavior or even micro behavior, like your eye glances all the way to the left always, then they would know that there might be something going on. So it capture. It doesn't say that, you are cheating. No. It would just tag, waiting for the proctor to review, either immediately or after the exam. So all these are up to the proctor in how to manage it. It gives them more attentions or spend to more students. So that's why I think absolutely an enhancement to the AI itself, to the remote proctoring.
Yeah, so my perspective on this one is that, under no circumstances should any kind of technology be replacing humans. I think humans should not become a slave to technology. They should use technology as a tool to make their performance better. So I think just the way it happened in the call center industry, where the agents, because of use of technology, were called super agents. Similarly, I think with the help of AI, we could have augmented proctors or we could have super proctors who now have the power beyond their five senses to be able to deliver better quality and probably even more efficiently. Just like, how we are, watching soccer matches, so the referee is still there. The umpire is still there. So it's not like that umpire is gone. But now the umpire and the referee is enabled or strengthened with the additional power of technology and mechanisms to give right decisions more frequently, and therefore always come up with the fair chance and throughput. So I think if we were to use AI with that kind of a perspective, then it would actually help us progress further versus taking a regressive steps of calling AI the villain in the entire system. And I think that's really not a great idea by anyone. It will come, we can delay it, but we cannot avoid it.
I like that name that you said, like super proctor. That sounds good. But does any of you believe that AI, maybe like in 10 or 20 years, will take over that human role?
I don't think so. At least to me, if you tell me that teachers would be replaced by AI, you would have a general consensus that it won't, right? And proctor is almost, I would say, almost the same, because you need the actual intuitive sense, and also even the look, and also like, I'm warning you. No, AI wouldn't do that. No, well, at least to my knowledge today.
Okay.
I'm not a betting man, but I wouldn't like to say that it would replace the human aspect of that, for sure.
But I do like you putting a time frame to it, like 20 years. I was starting to doubt that. Maybe 20 years that AI could be developed. Not the AI, the algorithm itself, with the improvement of technology and the computational power, you can do a lot more than today, and couldn't even describe it today. But I would say at least like 5 to 10 years, we don't have that threat.
Okay, yeah. Well, okay, so for now we're
safe.
Yeah, we're safe. Okay, so let's switch the discussion to test security, and I would like to hear from you. How do you think like remote proctoring developed in terms of test security? Because what I hear from people saying, well, the students get smarter not only in learning but also in cheating, and so you have to. It's like a race against each other.
Yeah.
And what do you think remote proctoring is adding to that? So, will remote proctoring make it easier or more difficult for students or candidates to cheat?
I think that would be very different sets of concerns and risks. I'll take just one traditional example, like can they prepare the site to their advantage in a traditional center-based test? No, because they just walked in and found out their seat 5 minutes before the exam. So there's no way that he could take advantage of that. But they have the world of the time to prepare their test room, which is their bedroom or study room, to put a camera and whatever, or something like an earplug or whatever, or even like a external connected whatever monitor with their friends next to them, and actually prompt them to answer. So all these possibility, they could do that. And we have to catch it just the other way around. We've only got 5 minutes to ensure that their room are clean. Yeah. So it's just they turn the table around. That issue is a separate issue that we need to figure out a way using either you call it AI, either you call it automation, to sort out that. So all these has to be addressed differently. It's not like it is a bigger issue than the test center itself, because each have their own problem.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's again, about the check-in process, it has to be slightly different because it is a different environment. So, we have checks where people are turning their pockets out and those types of things, and the environment checks. And as long as you're clear with your communication to the candidates that that's what's going to happen, I think there isn't really a way around not being able to do that. And I think the AI, as well as you were saying, kind of that's a in-test experience, and if that becomes more intelligent to assist the proctors, then that is, it's being able to detect the cheating, isn't it, through during the exam session.
Yeah, no, that's true. But it's again a different perspective. You would have heard of this brand called Surf Excel, right, from Unilever. So one of their taglines is "Dirt is good." Yeah, it basically says that dirt is good because it ensures that the kids stay kids, and they do all kinds of things which actually gets their clothes dirty, and therefore there is a better bonding between the mother and the child because of the dirt, right? So dirt is good. So similarly, I feel cheating is good, right, for two things. One, I think when people are cheating, you have to be continuously ahead of the curve, and only intelligent people can cheat, right? So it ensures that the students or the generation that you have are trying to beat the system with their intelligence to be a step ahead of that, right? So it's actually a good virtue. I mean, it'd be such a dull scenario where everybody was just following whatever they were and not trying to figure out smarter ways of getting things done, right? So if somebody is trying to cheat, I think that's great. Of course, we should not let them cheat and succeed. But somebody trying to cheat is something, it indicates a growth of a generation. The second aspect is, because of cheating and because of the fact that people are trying to get one up over you, your system continues to evolve. If there is no cheating, systems won't evolve. You will not become a better system. You will not try to plug in all the loopholes that could actually affect the fairness or accuracy. So therefore, whatever you do, whether it's remote or whether it is offline or whether it is in the space, wherever it might be, the cheating is bound to continue. That's the human trait. Yeah. The question is, are you just going to accept it, or are you going to do something about it? So I think it's good, actually. Yeah.
It's interesting, though, just on that point, tech companies, they have hackers on the books.
They have, yeah, absolutely.
And they have these bounties where they give money away to people who find flaws in their software. Mm-hmm. And, it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, maybe the testing industry needs those good hackers.
I totally agree with the latter part of your argument, but the first part I cannot agree. It's simply because it's not the kid who's figuring out how to cheat, or the candidate. There is a huge industry called cheating companies or cheating services, where it is much bigger than our community, sadly, and they generate the amount of money and revenue is much, much higher. So that's why it's those people who are helping those who have money to actually buy the services to get a higher mark, which they don't deserve. So I do not buy that part, but I agree with you. I mean, it makes us alert in a way that we have to improve our system to beat that kind of cheating.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I'm fine with your disagreement.
Thank you.
Well, at least you agree to disagree.
Yeah, I agree to disagree.
It made me think about what's happening currently in chess, where you have cheating scandals. Mm-hmm. Not only, of course, when you play remotely, so then you can use a chess engine.
Yes.
But it's different when you play in person. Then it's more difficult to cheat. But still, all these players are checked with metal detectors and everything. But they usually use sort of data forensics to detect cheating, because if you get in excess of like 95% of what the chess engine is saying, and the chess engine, by the way, is always much better than the best human chess player. So then they can catch you, because no human can do that.
See, at Datamatics, for example, we provide proctors, to various kinds of testing companies, and the kind of setups we have provided are actually built up in a manner where you could actually enable these proctors to, take care of those things. So none of the proctors are actually allowed to bring in any pen or paper or any mobile phone or anything of sorts. So we have all kinds of metal detectors. Everything basically scans people through and through before they actually walk in for proctoring. The other day, we actually had a candidate who actually came up with glasses, these normal glasses, which actually had the built-in Bluetooth speaker. Right? Not that he was trying to do something about it, but he just wanted to beat the system and say, here, see, I've got something that you hadn't thought of. Of course, I mean, after that, we ensured, now we also check glasses, if glasses have Bluetooth enablement in that, etc. So, I mean, it's a moving target. And everybody in the entire chain has to continue to evolve to ensure that there are no gaps through which anybody could enter.
I would give a contribution to you as an example. 3 years ago in China, we caught not glasses. Guess what they put the communication devices in, because we do all these like metal detector thing, but they're still able to get in. I mean, glasses is easy to catch. For them, they use implant teeth. Yes, they go to dentists. They bought implant teeth. They took their own teeth out, and parental guidance. So they actually put their own teeth reserved in in the dentist. And then they plant in the device with a fake teeth. And they walked in. And they actually whatever he mumbles would be heard outside. And then, of course, I don't know how they get it. I was told, I wasn't on site, I was told that it's actually the audio comes back is actually using the skull but so nobody could hear it. It's only him or her could hear it. So that's like crazy. It's much better than glasses, but anyway.
So one of the reasons I was asking about that security is, so of course for instance, if you increase the level of surveillance or observation, and especially with AI, you can make it more difficult, because like any movement, anytime you look in a different direction, it can flag. But then that goes at the cost of the user experience. So there's a bit of a trade that you have to make between user experience and security. So how do you look at that? So how do you have to do it?
We build like taxonomy of micro behaviors. Like looking left and right is okay unless you do it all the time at a particular side. That's one thing. And if you are like dipping down your head, it is okay for once and for a short time. But if you're dipping down like every 2 minutes and stay there for a minute, then there's flagging. That's the kind of taxonomy of behavior that we built that would start recording and flag the proctor to check it. So the user experience itself wouldn't be affected until to a threshold that we set. That's the kind of design.
About statistics as well, isn't it? I guess there's a lot of statistics in those things, and trying to categorize those behaviors into actionable kind of insights for the proctor.
Exactly.
And how and what they're going to do as well. So the processes that they need to follow. I think you have to have, kind of, I spoke about it earlier, it's robust processes around that, and make clear communication to the candidates what you expect of them, and what they expect as well as part of the process. So.
And that's why a trial day is an excellent idea. So no surprises to either the proctor or the candidate. So they could just try to log in, do the entire process, but without actually reading the exam itself, just fake items. But they went through the whole process of logging on and checking ID and checking the environment, taking photos, and then log off. So that would be a very good protocol to get through. So they would not be surprised or unhappy about things that happen on the actual test day.
I was also thinking about assuring the best quality and user experience through what I would call best practices. Of course, you must have heard about some of the litigation against remote proctoring, like was it now in Ohio? I don't remember the exact state, but where they said, well, a judge said, making a room scan ahead of the test is unconstitutional. Well, we can think of it what we want, but so that is something we have to think about, maybe more like self-regulation or assuring quality in a standardized way. I know that ATP is working on some sort of a standard for remote proctoring. So what are your thoughts about that whole regulation part?
It is interesting, and I read the reports about the Ohio thing as well, and it is an interesting take on invasion of privacy and all of those types of things. But you have to protect the integrity of the test, and I think again it's about being clear as to why you're doing those things. Why are you and talking about making sure that. Well, we're not going to keep this data as an organisation. We're not going to keep the room scan, but it is just for this moment in time to make it kind of seamless. I think is really important, and having this kind of almost an order of service for your security agents and proctors to ensure that they are delivering the same thing again and again. Yeah. You're trying to make a team of however many proctors behave like one person. Yeah. And deliver this and be absolutely consistent with that. And finding things around kind of how you deal with certain questions. If there's a chat message that comes through. Those types of things as well. So, and going back to your point earlier about the certain individuals, they are almost kind of walk-ins. They'll come in, they'll take a test, and they will never do another test like that. And so there's that experience as well around how do you kind of make that as easy for them as possible, I think.
Yeah. Totally agree. Yep. Well, for a change, I don't disagree. Yeah. Oh, wow. Sorry.
Well, we could try for the discussion. But do you use like any self-regulation or like standards, quality standards, or that you?
No. Well, I think if there is a paper, which I believe ATP is doing one. The best practices or the guiding principle of it, I do think that they need to include a cultural variation or regional variation. Say, for example, in our part of the world, people are begging to resume tests, right? And they say, well, put a camera in, 10 if you need. I just need to get my qualification, right? I need to go abroad study. I need to get my job. And my boss asked me to do that so I could get a promotion. So all these have to be done.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah, whatever it takes. So I think if you are in a region where people are talking about opting out, not taking exam, or like, is it fair to me, or do I allow you to scan my room? That's that kind of different. Nothing superior or inferior. It's just different kind of expectation. Then I think the guideline has to be very careful about giving guidelines, in particular to different regions. That's my understanding.
Yeah. Sandeep, how do you feel about this?
So I don't know enough about about this hearing for me to be able to comment sufficiently. But at a very general level, I think there is no right or wrong by different organizations. Since we provide services to various organizations, we tend to go by what their definition of right is, more than defining our own right. Of course, we can suggest that this is appropriate, not appropriate, given cultural, political, or regulatory sort of constraints. But I think for us, the right is defined by who we are working for.
And if you look at offering choice to candidates, so if they say, well, I don't want to do remote proctoring, or maybe a candidate is not in the situation to, because they don't have a quiet room or not a good broadband connection to the internet. So what would you offer those candidates?
Well, to us, we do have that kind of like nearby facility that they could go for individual candidates. So it's like a minority portion of it, which we could handle. But most of the costs associated with it, the client wouldn't really agree to it. They would say, let's reschedule, or let's find the right time when the test centers are open. They would just keep either refund to them or just like allowing them to reschedule to a longer period of time. Yeah. So it depends on the commercial, whether it works or not.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's either been one or the other, hasn't it? And I think we're certainly with the systems that we have, it's almost like a hybrid approach, much like the working environment where people want to go back. Some want to go back into the office, some don't. I think that's the same for taking tests. And we have to make sure that our systems can have that blended kind of approach as well. So if there was a session and half of the participants were remote and half weren't, how would we handle that? It is about choice, because at the moment I think there is a bit of an issue with process, as you were saying. If someone wants to reschedule and go back into a test, that creates frantically people kind of in the background, trying to work out how they can sort that out. If it's just one candidate, you've got to then find a seat, etc., in a centre and all of that. So I think, for me, it is always thinking about, it's going to be hybrid. I feel as that is the future.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with that. So after COVID, at least we have a choice. Earlier, the choice was not there. Of course, it was happening in between, but it was not set up like a accepted, tried and tested process, right? Also, the technologies have improved, the bandwidth has improved. Even in developing countries today, you see 5G and other things sort of getting deployed. So at least we have the choice today. Now, given the fact that you have a choice, before we come to the experience or choice of the candidate, I think the question first needs to be asked to the test sponsor about his confidence in different channels. And if his confidence is kind of stable with regards to either channels, then of course I think people should just go ahead and offer the convenience to the candidate, because he's the customer. And customer is the king.
So if you look at the future, let's take a look at the future. So how would you think remote proctoring will change, and especially the role of the proctor? What would be your guess?
Well, to me, I would see our proctors being the role and responsibility would gradually formalize and more like three-dimensional in a way. Now it's like a proctor is a proctor, right? So you just go and make sure that they don't cheat. But it will become like, say, for example, if you have like a supervisor layer, and then they've got different skill sets, like dealing with people instead of dealing with processes. So that kind of skill set should be a backup for those who are on the front line. They have to fulfill their KPI, like I have to check in 10 students within 1 minute. So I focus on that. If I couldn't do that, just throw it up to the supervisor. So this kind of like, it becomes like a new certification for proctors for remote kind of situation. So that's how I envision it. And they are becoming more professional, and maybe hopefully in the future it's more like a share resources, like Uber, Proctor, then that would be nice.
Oh yeah. So you can organize your test center anytime, any place, anywhere.
Yeah, and then there'll be Uber, not Ubers, sorry. Any shared proctors that are raising their hand and say, I've got time during the time of the day, so I would be able to help out as a proctor. Yeah.
The proctor certification is an interesting concept, I think, because you have proctors who could be dealing with multiple clients in one day, right?
Yes.
In a morning session and an afternoon session, and it's about providing them with the relevant information that is unique to your organisation. You know, we work with several clients where we have to give the proctors the right information to ensure that they provide the right service.
Yeah, some are higher, some are lower.
Yeah, so and some of the tests are hours long, and some and the certification I think is quite an interesting idea.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I feel there are 3 or 4 key trends which are there, right? So one is, of course, these super proctors, where they are actually augmented by the technology. And I feel right now they're observing. So they would change from observers to become alert managers. So they probably may not be observing as much they would be managing alerts generated by technology notifications. So that way the productivity can go up, the proctor ratio can go up, because now they don't have to observe, somebody else is observing and they are managing alerts to ensure that. So that probably could be one. Second field is around customization, which is how can I customize the experience of various candidates. As of today, one size fits all, largely. Yeah. But with the advent of technology and others and the data and etc., one could actually customize the entire experience of the candidates to ensure that when it's a K-12, then you handle that entire experience very differently. The kind of candidate support that you have, etc., is very different versus somebody who's, let's say, from Asia, etc. I mean, so the entire experience can be customized and very built to that particular persona of candidate. And third, like Alex mentioned, I think the gig economy is something which will stay and which will have a larger role. And therefore, scaling up or down will actually be a function of the repository of proctors we have on our panel. And therefore, you should be able to ping up, you should be able to actually undertake various things. So probably 3-4 things can go into shaping the industry of the future. But it will stay because people will cheat. And therefore, you will need proctors. So that's not going to go away.
So in terms of that cheating and security levels, would you, like in the future, would remote proctoring be able to do all the high stakes testing? I remember, so when the pandemic hit in, there were different directions. For instance, one of the first I remember, it was, I think, the College Board doing AP tests or AP exams. And that didn't go too well in the beginning. And there was a lot of critique. But I also remember like very silently, like the LSAT went 100% remote.
Yes.
And that, there was, I heard nothing about that. So it went all smooth.
Yes.
And they're still completely remote. So, but when I was at ACT, we considered going remote proctoring, but in the end we didn't, because we were afraid at universities, because even the smallest difference would influence their admissions policy, that they would object against that. So, so looking at the future, would you think that remote proctoring would be able to handle all the high stakes, the highest stakes even, or what's your guess?
I think it's the technology that we've been talking about would have to be there to support that. Yeah. It's about volume, isn't it? The number of candidates that one proctor can handle at the moment, for that quality of service. I think just going back to the previous point, there's parts of the lessons that we can learn from the service industry and those types of providing services to customers, like in hotels and things like that we can adopt in call centres and things. We're effectively, there's a lot of similarities in that. But I definitely think that to get the volume, you have to have assistance with that, because the number of proctors for large-scale testing, the logistics around that are just mind-boggling at the moment, I think so.
Yeah, I think from my experience with the high-stake exams, to me, the highest, of course, is government licensure, which, no, they don't even test it. They don't even try it. I mean, within China, they would say, in order to be a judge or doctor or policeman, no, you have to sit down in front of a proctor in a physical test center. But for professional associations where you license to become a believed to be a competent worker, this kind of nice to have, we call it nice to have kind of qualification, they are all going ahead for that. Yeah, but then would they continue, that's your main question, would they continue in the future to use this? Within China, if the test sponsor is an Asian or China-based sponsor, they would say, well, if everything come back to normal, where test center could be open, they will all fall back to test center. They said this is the most proven thousands of years way of testing. So don't even try. So, because they are forced to do that only. But for international test sponsor, I could see a very different kind of mentality. They would say, since we actually can do it, but we're not going to 100% switch over, but we at least give it as an option. Yeah. So like in Japan, in Korea, I mean, a professional association, international one from the US, they keep it open and say, hey, I mean, Japan is all open now, Korea is all open, but the remote, what we call remote test from home, is still available as a long term. I mean, they release date for months, even for 2023, and so it's staying that. So it's very different. It's not like one kind of trend.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think all high stakes would be covered, to answer you in short, but of course there are some that cannot be covered. Things like if you have to certify somebody for wine tasting, right?
Yeah.
How are you going to do it remotely? Or if you want to, so anything which probably would require you to be exploring any of your physical senses to become certified, I don't think remote proctoring would ever reach there as of in the next 20, 30 years. But other than that, I think a fair amount of high stakes and security and privacy and other concerns should be addressed.
Thank you. And so I can tell you that, I've been advising a wine certification organization, and I can share with you that they are considering sending out samples so that you can do the tasting remotely, and so that would require a different type of remote proctoring, of course. But no, so definitely that has options to do that remotely as well. But yeah.
I mean, artistic skills like dancing, singing, and painting is all done in China remotely, and we just have to make sure that the check-in procedures and everything. We don't care about cheating because it's like that person doing the dancing. How can you cheat, all right? So it's a performance. It's just more on the logistics.
I see. Well, I think it was a very interesting discussion. I think we have to look at the time and finish up. But so anyone has some like famous last words that they wanted to say?
No. Keep it going.
Well, thank you for the great discussion, and thank you, audience, for staying with us, listening, and have a great rest of your conference. Okay, then thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.